"Can I sit with you?" Claire whispered, never knowing the quiet man across the library table carried a gun beneath his coat, or that the most feared Mafia boss in Seattle was her father. Outside, rain slid down the cathedral windows. 3 weeks later, those same windows would explode under gunfire while Ethan held Claire's hand, and every lie surrounding her life finally shattered. She had spent years believing she was alone, just a nursing student buried beneath grief, unpaid bills, and memories of a mother she could no longer call. But sometimes the most ordinary moment, one empty chair, one stranger, one question, opens the door to a truth powerful enough to destroy everything. Stay until the end to discover what happens when love begins with a secret and identity becomes a weapon. Like the video and comment where you are watching from. 3 weeks earlier, before the cathedral windows shattered and Claire Bennett learned that nearly every truth in her life had been carefully arranged, Seattle was simply wet, gray, and cold. Rain followed her from Harborview Medical Center to the University District. It gathered in the shoulders of her coat, darkened the knees of her jeans, and slipped beneath the collar of her nursing uniform. By the time she reached the bus stop, the paper cup in her hand had gone soft from the weather. Claire looked down at her phone. 3 notifications waited on the screen. The first was a reminder that her student loan payment was overdue. The second came from her landlord. "The heating company will return Tuesday. Please avoid using the bedroom outlet until the wiring is inspected." The third was a voicemail from the funeral home. Claire did not play it. She already knew what the woman would say. There was still a balance on her mother's account. 7 months after Laura Bennett had been buried, the bills continued arriving as if grief were a subscription Claire had forgotten to cancel. She turned the phone face down against her palm. A city bus moved through the intersection without stopping. Its tires threw dirty water across the sidewalk. Claire stepped back too late. Cold water struck her boots. "Perfect," she whispered. Someone held a coffee cup near her shoulder. Claire turned. Hannah Pierce stood beneath a red umbrella with 2 drinks and an expression of exaggerated concern. "You look terrible." Claire accepted the coffee. "Thank you. I meant medically. That makes it kinder." Hannah moved closer beneath the umbrella. Her blonde hair was tied behind her head, and she still wore her hospital identification badge from the morning shift. "You were supposed to leave clinical an hour ago. A patient's daughter was late. You stayed with him." He did not want to be alone. Hannah studied her. "You cannot keep doing that." "Doing what?" "Treating every lonely person in Seattle like they are your responsibility." Claire looked toward the hospital entrance. The automatic doors opened and closed, releasing brief flashes of fluorescent light. He was scared. "So are you." "I am not in a hospital bed." "No, you are standing in the rain with no heat in your apartment, and enough debt to qualify as a small nation." Claire drank the coffee. It was too hot and too sweet. Exactly how she liked it. "You remembered the caramel. You complain when I do not. That is how friendship works." Hannah linked an arm through hers and guided her toward campus. "You have a pharmacology exam in 2 days." "I know. You said that yesterday." "I knew yesterday, too." "Where are you studying Suzalo?" Again. "The library has heat. So does my apartment. Your roommate has a snake. Montgomery lives in a locked tank. Montgomery watches me. He has no eyelids." "That does not make it better." Hannah laughed. For half a block, Claire almost felt normal. The rain softened into mist. Students hurried past beneath umbrellas. Bicycle lights moved through the early evening like small white stars. Then her phone vibrated again. The funeral home. Claire pressed the side button until the screen went dark. Hannah glanced at her but did not ask. That was one of the reasons Claire loved her. Some people believed grief needed conversation. Hannah understood that sometimes it needed company and silence. They separated near the nursing building. Hannah had promised to help a classmate prepare for a lab assessment. Claire continued alone toward the library. Suzzallo rose above the wet campus like something built for another century. Tall windows glowed against the darkening sky. Rainwater shone across the stone steps. Inside, warm air met Claire's face. The reading room was crowded. Every long wooden table was occupied by students surrounded by laptops, notebooks, coffee cups, and the exhausted expressions of people who had mistaken higher education for a reasonable decision. Claire walked the length of the room. No empty seats. She checked the smaller tables near the windows. Nothing. Her backpack felt heavier with every step. The bottom of her coffee cup had begun to leak. Then she saw one chair. It sat across from a man in a dark sweater near the far end of the reading room. He appeared to be alone. A thick economics textbook rested open in front of him. A black coffee sat untouched beside his right hand. He was not reading. Claire noticed that immediately. His eyes moved toward every person who entered the room. He watched reflections in the windows. He sat where he could see both doors without turning his head. His hair was dark, cut short at the sides. A pale scar crossed one of his knuckles. He looked too old to be an undergraduate and too alert to be relaxed. He also had the only empty chair in the building. Claire approached the table. The man looked up. His eyes were gray. Not soft gray. The gray of the sky before a storm reaches the shore. Claire tightened her grip on her books. "Can I sit with you?" For half a second, surprise moved across his face. It disappeared so quickly she almost thought she had imagined it. He glanced at the chair. "It is not mine." Claire pulled it back. That was almost friendly. It was the best I could do. She sat. Her books slipped against the polished wood. The coffee cup tilted. The stranger caught it before it spilled across her notes. His hand moved faster than hers. Claire stared at the cup now resting between his fingers. Fast reflexes. Bad coffee. "You have not tasted it. I have eyes." She looked down at the softened paper and laughed quietly. "You may have a point." He placed the cup on a stack of napkins. Claire opened her pharmacology book. The stranger returned his attention to the economics text. For several minutes neither of them spoke. Rain tapped softly against the tall windows. Pages turned around them. Someone coughed near the center aisle. Claire tried to focus on drug interactions, but she could feel the man across from her observing the room. Not staring, monitoring. His gaze passed over the doors, the stairwell, and the glass display case near the wall. Claire followed it. Two men stood in different parts of the library. One wore a gray coat and sat 3 tables away without a laptop or book. The other remained near the stairs holding a folded newspaper he had not opened. Claire looked back at the stranger. He was studying them. "Friends of yours?" His eyes returned to her. Who the man pretending to read a newspaper, and the one staring at a blank table? His expression did not change. "You notice people." "I notice when people are bad at pretending." Useful skill. In nursing, people lie constantly. About what pain? Medication. Drinking. Whether they followed discharge instructions. Can you always tell? Number Claire turned a page. But the ones who think they are convincing are usually the easiest. The stranger looked down at his textbook. Claire noticed the page. "You have been reading the same paragraph since I sat down. It is a difficult paragraph. The book is upside down." His eyes dropped. The textbook was in fact upside down. For the first time, she heard him laugh. It was brief and low, as though the sound had escaped before he could stop it. Claire smiled. "What are you actually studying?" He turned the book around. "Supply chains. Is that your major?" "Something like that?" "That sounds suspicious. Why, people who study supply chains usually know whether the book is upside down." His mouth moved slightly. "What are you studying? Pharmacology. Interesting, no. Then why do it? Claire tapped the edge of her pen against the page. Because one day someone may be dying, and I would prefer not to guess. The answer changed something in his face. Not much. Just enough for Claire to notice. He looked toward the two men again. The one in the gray coat had shifted his attention to the windows. The man near the stairs touched his ear. Claire followed the movement. Do you know them? No. You keep watching them. So do you. That is because you keep watching them. The stranger leaned back. You ask a lot of questions. You avoid simple answers. Maybe I do not like simple questions. Claire lowered her voice. Maybe you are not very good at answers. His gaze held hers. For one quiet second, the crowded library seemed farther away. Then Claire's phone vibrated. The funeral home number appeared again. She pressed decline. The man looked at the phone, then at her face. He did not ask. Claire appreciated that more than she wanted to. She returned to her notes. After several minutes, he spoke. Someone important? Claire kept her eyes on the page. Someone expensive. He waited. Claire sighed. My mother died. The words still felt wrong in her mouth. Too complete. Too final. The man's expression changed. I am sorry. People say that because there is nothing else to say. That does not make it untrue. Claire looked up. Most people became uncomfortable when she mentioned Laura. They looked away, changed the subject, or offered the kind of optimism that sounded like instructions. This man simply sat with the fact. How long, he asked. 7 months. His eyes moved briefly toward the phone. The funeral home. Claire nodded. There was a balance. Do you need help? The question came so directly that she almost laughed. You do not know me. No, and you are offering to pay for my mother's funeral. I asked whether you needed help. That sounds dangerously close to the same thing. He looked at the black coffee beside his hand. Forget I asked. Claire softened. I am handling it. He did not challenge her. She studied him for a moment. What is your name? A pause. Ethan. Only Ethan. Ethan Ward. Claire Bennett. I know. Her finger stopped against the page. Ethan's face remained calm. Then he looked toward the identification badge clipped to her bag. Claire followed his gaze. Her name was printed clearly across it. She exhaled. That was almost alarming. Almost I have had a long day. The library lights flashed once. Closing time. Students began packing their belongings. Claire shoved notebooks into her backpack. The bottom zipper caught on the fabric. Ethan reached across the table. May I? She moved her hand aside. He freed the zipper without forcing it. His movements were careful, precise. The two men Claire had noticed left separately. The man in the gray coat exited first. The second waited near the stairs until Claire stood. Ethan watched both. Claire slipped her arms into her coat. Thank you for the seat. It was not mine. That answer is less charming the second time. I was not trying to be charming. I believe you. She lifted her backpack. The weight pulled at one shoulder. Ethan stood. He was taller than she had realized. Are you taking the bus? Yes. I am walking that direction. Claire looked toward the main doors. The bus stop is south. I am going south. You were looking north when we packed. He met her eyes. I changed my mind. Claire considered refusing. Then she looked outside. Rain pressed against the windows. The two strange men were no longer visible. Fine. They left the library together. Cold air struck them at the top of the steps. Claire pulled her hood up. Ethan did not seem bothered by the weather. He walked on the side closest to the street. Claire noticed. You do that deliberately. What walk near the curb? Habit. Military. His gaze shifted toward her. What makes you ask? You watch exits. You sit facing doors. Your posture changes when someone comes too close. Ethan looked ahead. No, it was a lie. Claire heard it clearly. She did not press. The campus was quiet beneath the rain. Water ran along the gutters. Light from the dormitory windows stretched across the pavement. Behind them, the man in the gray coat emerged from beneath the library archway. Ethan saw him in the reflection of a parked car. He also saw someone else near the intersection. A younger man wearing a baseball cap stood beneath a storefront awning. His phone was raised at chest level. The camera pointed toward Claire. Ethan slowed. Claire looked at him. What? Nothing. The man beneath the awning took a photograph. Ethan changed direction slightly, placing himself between Claire and the lens. The photographer lowered the phone. Claire did not notice. At the bus stop, Ethan stood with his back to the shelter wall. Claire rubbed her hands together. The wind moved beneath the roof and cut through her wet sleeves. Ethan removed his gloves. He held them out. I am fine. You are shaking. I am cold. That is not an emergency. He placed the gloves on the bench between them. Claire looked at them. You always solve problems people did not ask you to solve. Not always. That sounded like another lie. Maybe. A bus passed without stopping. Claire looked at the route number. Wrong one. Ethan remained beside her. You do not have to wait. I know. She picked up the gloves. They were warm from his hands. Thank you. He nodded. Claire pulled them on. They were too large. Her fingers disappeared inside them. She looked down and smiled. I will return these. You do not have my number. Claire looked at him. That sounds like a problem you expect me to solve. Ethan removed his phone and held it out. She entered her name and number. When she handed it back, his screen lit with a message. The sender's name was hidden, but Claire saw part of the text. Need confirmation on Friday collection. Ethan turned the screen off. Supply chains, she asked. His face remained still. Something like that. Her bus approached. Claire stepped toward the curb. The doors opened. She turned before getting on. Good night, Ethan Ward. Good night, Claire Bennett. She boarded. Ethan watched until the bus pulled away. The man in the baseball cap was gone. A black sedan waited across the street. Ethan stood beneath the shelter as Grant Mercer approached through the rain. Grant was in his late 40s, broad-shouldered with silver beginning at his temples. His coat concealed a weapon at his side. He stopped several feet from Ethan. You are too close to her. Ethan looked toward the departing bus. I do not know who you mean. Grant's expression did not change. Then keep it that way. You have been following her all evening. Protecting. She does not know. That is why it works. Ethan looked at him. Does Raymond know someone photographed her outside the library? Grant's eyes sharpened. You saw him? I saw a man with a camera. What did he look like? Baseball cap. Early 30s. Brown jacket. Grant took out his phone and sent a message. Ethan studied him. Why would Raymond Vale pay his most trusted security chief to watch a nursing student? Grant lowered the phone. Walk away. That is not an answer. It is the only one you need. Ethan stepped closer. If Sullivan learns who she is, walking away will not protect her. Grant's hand moved near his coat. You say that name again within 100 feet of Claire, and this conversation ends differently. The threat confirmed what Ethan already suspected. Claire Bennett was not simply connected to Raymond Vale. She was his daughter. The old story had circulated through Seattle's criminal world for years. 22 years earlier, Raymond Vale had been shot during an attempted takeover near the port of Tacoma. A young emergency room nurse named Laura Bennett treated him in a private room before the police arrived. She disappeared from the hospital records shortly afterward. Some men claimed Raymond had fallen in love with her. Others said she had given birth to his child. Most treated the story as another legend built around a powerful man. Ethan looked toward the street where Claire's bus had vanished. The legend now had her smile, her grief, her phone number in his hand. "Does she know?" he asked. Grant's silence answered. Ethan looked at him. "You let her believe her father was dead. That decision was made before either of us met her." "Convenient." Grant stepped closer. "You work for Victor Sullivan. Do not pretend concern makes you clean." Ethan's jaw tightened. Grant continued. "If Victor learns who she is, he will use her until Raymond has nothing left to give. Then he will kill her because living witnesses make men nervous." Ethan looked toward the rain, and Raymond's solution was to watch her from parked cars. Raymond made a promise to her mother. He kept the part that cost him nothing. Grant's face hardened. "You do not know what it cost." "No." Ethan looked at the empty road. "But I know what it cost her." Grant studied him. "You have not told Sullivan." "No." Why, Ethan thought of Claire sitting across from him. The leaking coffee, the upside-down book, the way she had said her mother died without asking him to make the sentence easier. "I have not decided." Grant moved closer until only a few feet separated them. "She is not a decision." Ethan's voice lowered. "I know." Grant held his gaze for another second, then turned away. "Stay out of her life." Ethan watched him cross the street. His phone remained in his hand. Victor Sullivan's number was saved beneath a false business name. One call could change Ethan's position inside the organization. Raymond Vale's hidden daughter was worth Port's contracts, money, and power. Victor would reward the man who delivered her. Ethan looked at Claire's number instead. He opened a new message. "You still have my gloves." He stared at the words. Then he deleted them. Across Seattle, Detective Aaron Pike sat inside an unmarked car near the university entrance. Rain moved across the windshield. On the seat beside him lay a camera with a long lens. He opened the photograph he had taken. Claire stood beneath the bus shelter wearing Ethan's gloves. Ethan stood beside her, his body angled toward the street. Pike enlarged Claire's face. Then he sent the image to Victor Sullivan. "Raymond Vale's men have protected this girl for years. I am checking sealed medical records." The response appeared almost immediately. "Find out why." Pike placed the phone beside the camera. On the bus, Claire sat near the window. She looked down at Ethan's gloves covering her hands. A message appeared on her phone. It was from Hannah. "Did the library save your academic career?" Claire glanced through the rain-streaked glass. The city moved past in blurred lights. She typed back. "Maybe." "I met someone strange," Hannah replied. "Dangerous strange or interesting strange." Claire thought about Ethan watching the doors, his upside-down book, the way he had offered help and then withdrawn the moment she refused. She smiled faintly. "I do not know yet." Several miles behind her, Ethan remained beneath the bus shelter with Victor Sullivan's number open on his phone. He locked the screen without calling. The rain kept falling around him. For several minutes he remained beneath the bus shelter watching the road where Claire had disappeared. Victor Sullivan's number stayed silent in his pocket. That silence became the first lie Ethan chose for himself. The next morning, Claire arrived at Suzalo Library before him. She placed her books on the same table and left the chair across from her empty, even as students searched for places to sit. She told herself it was because Ethan's gloves were folded beside her pharmacology notes. She did not examine the answer closely. When he entered 20 minutes later, his eyes moved across the reading room before finding her. Claire lifted the gloves. "You abandoned property." Ethan approached the table. "You said you would return them. I considered keeping them." They do not fit. They make me look mysterious. They make you look like you borrowed hands from someone larger." Claire smiled. Ethan sat across from her. A coffee appeared beside her book. She looked at it. "Caramel. You complained about the last one for 8 minutes. That was constructive criticism. It was a speech. You remembered." Ethan opened his economics book. "You were difficult to ignore." Claire tasted the coffee. It was exactly right. She lowered her eyes before he could see how much that mattered. For the next 3 weeks, the table became theirs. They never discussed it. Claire simply began arriving with 2 chairs in mind. Ethan began carrying coffee for 2. Some mornings they studied in silence. Other days, Claire talked enough for both of them. She told him which professors frightened the first-year students, which vending machine stole money, and which hospital elevator always stopped 1 floor too early. Ethan told her almost nothing. Claire learned to read the pieces he did not mean to give away. He hated crowded rooms. He never wore bright colors. He knew how long police response took in different parts of the city. He could identify a vehicle by the sound of its engine. He never drank enough coffee to justify buying it. And whenever someone moved too quickly behind him, his right hand drifted toward the inside of his coat. One afternoon, a heavy medical textbook fell from a shelf. The sound cracked through the reading room. Ethan was standing before the book hit the floor. His chair moved backward. His shoulders lowered. His eyes found the nearest door. Claire looked up slowly. Students turned toward the fallen book, laughed, and returned to their work. Ethan sat again. Claire closed her notebook. "Military." His gaze moved to her face. "What makes you ask? You scan doors before sitting. That proves nothing. You do not like anyone behind you. Most people do not. Loud noises move your body before your expression changes." Ethan looked toward the shelf. Claire waited. He could have lied. He had lied about more important things. "Marines," he said. "How long? 6 years? Where?" His jaw tightened. Claire saw the boundary. She reopened her notebook. "You do not have to answer." Ethan looked at her. Most people responded to silence by pressing harder. Claire had simply recognized the closed door and stepped away from it. "Fallujah," he said. Her pen stopped. "You said I did not have to answer." "You did not." "That is why I did." Claire studied his face. There were questions she wanted to ask. What he had seen, what he had done. Why a former Marine was pretending to study supply chains with a book he rarely read. She asked none of them. Instead, she pushed half of her sandwich across the table. "You have not eaten. I am not hungry." That was not a question. Ethan looked at the sandwich. "Is this how you treat patients?" "Only the difficult ones." He took it. Claire smiled and returned to her notes. Across the room, Grant Mercer watched them from behind a newspaper. His expression did not change. Ethan noticed him anyway. 2 nights later, Claire left Harborview after another clinical shift. The rain had stopped, but the sidewalk still shone beneath the streetlights. She saw Ethan standing near the entrance. He wore a dark coat and leaned against the wall as if he had been waiting without wanting to appear that way. Claire approached. "You are far from the economics building." "I was nearby." "At a hospital?" "Yes." "For supply chain reasons?" "Something like that." She looked at him more carefully. His face was pale. He favored his left side. Claire stepped closer. "You are hurt?" "I am fine. That sentence should be illegal. I walked here. People with broken ribs can walk." His eyes sharpened. "I do not have broken ribs. You sound defensive. I am standing. That is not a diagnosis." Claire caught the edge of his coat and pulled it aside before he could stop her. A dark stain marked the shirt beneath his ribs. Her expression changed. "Come inside. It is nothing. You are bleeding through your shirt." Ethan looked toward the hospital doors. "No." Claire lowered her voice. "Then let me look." He did not answer. She guided him toward a service corridor beside the emergency department. The room at the end contained storage cabinets, a small examination chair, and supplies used by students during training. Claire locked the door. Ethan watched her remove gauze and antiseptic. "You do this often? Bring suspicious men into hospital closets?" "Yes, only on Thursdays." She pointed toward the chair. "Sit." Ethan obeyed. Claire pulled the fabric of his shirt upward. Bruises covered his side. One cut ran beneath the lowest rib. She touched the skin around it. Ethan's muscles tightened. "This is not a fall. I never said it was." "You were kicked." He remained silent. Claire looked at him. "I know what boots do to a body." Ethan met her eyes. "I handled a disagreement. With someone wearing steel toes, he was committed to his opinion." Claire cleaned the cut. Ethan barely reacted. "You should get imaging." "No. You may have a fracture." "I do not." "You cannot know that. I have had broken ribs. That is not reassuring." She pressed gauze against the wound. Ethan looked down at her bent head. A strand of hair had escaped from her ponytail. Fatigue rested beneath her eyes. Her hands remained steady despite 12 hours in a hospital. She cared for him without knowing what he had done to earn the bruises. The man who kicked him had owned a small trucking company connected to the Sullivan routes. He had refused to pay Victor's percentage. Ethan had been sent to correct the refusal. The man's brother had arrived with 2 friends. Ethan had left them alive. Victor considered that mercy. Claire secured the bandage. "What happened?" Ethan lowered his shirt. "You would not like the answer. You do not know what I like." "I know enough." She folded her arms. "You keep saying things like that." "Like what?" "Things that sound honest until I think about them." Ethan stood. Claire remained between him and the door. "You are not actually a student, are you?" His face became still. "I attend classes. That was not my question." "No." She waited. He could feel every lie pressing against his teeth. The Sullivan name, the collection routes, Victor, her father, the men outside her apartment. "I am trying to make my record look ordinary," he said. "What record employment?" "Why?" "Because some employers dislike gaps." Claire stared at him. "That is a terrible lie." "I know." "Then give me a better one." "I cannot." The answer hurt her more than another lie would have. She stepped aside. Ethan reached for the door. Claire spoke behind him. "I am not asking who kicked you." He stopped. "Why not?" "Because you would lie." He turned. Claire's expression was calm, but distance had entered it. "I am asking whether I should be afraid of you." The question landed where bullets had failed. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. "No." Claire's eyes searched his face. "Is that another lie?" "No." This time she believed him. Not because she trusted his past, because she trusted the way he answered. Ethan left the hospital knowing that faith was something he had not earned. That night he found the photographer from the library outside Claire's apartment. The man sat in a parked car with a camera resting beside him. Ethan opened the passenger door and climbed inside. The photographer reached toward his coat. Ethan caught his wrist. "Do not." The man froze. Ethan took the camera and opened the memory card. Dozens of photographs filled the screen. Claire leaving class. Claire buying groceries. Claire sitting beside Hannah in a coffee shop. Claire standing at her mother's grave. Ethan's hand tightened around the camera. "Who hired you?" The man said nothing. Ethan pressed his wrist against the center console. "Victor. Gnome. Detective Pike." The photographer looked toward him. That was enough. Ethan removed the memory card and broke it between his fingers. You photograph her again, I send your wife every picture you took for Pike last year. The man's face changed. How do you know about that? I notice people. Ethan stepped out of the vehicle. The photographer left without arguing. From the upper floor of the building, Claire stood near her window with a mug in both hands. She saw Ethan beside the car. By the time she opened the window, he was gone. The following evening, she asked him about it. They were sitting outside a small restaurant near Pike Place Market. Steam rose from bowls on the table. The city smelled of salt, wet pavement and coffee. I saw you outside my apartment. Ethan did not look up. When Tuesday night, you should lock your curtains. Claire set down her spoon. That is your answer. It is advice. I did not ask for advice. What did you ask? Why you were there? Ethan looked toward the street. Grant's sedan was parked half a block away. Claire followed his gaze but saw only headlights. I was making sure you got home, he said. You left before I arrived. I knew when you arrived. Her expression tightened. That is not comforting. Ethan looked at her. He had meant to reassure her. Instead, he had revealed too much. Someone was watching the building. Claire became still. Who? I do not know. That is why you were there. Yes. Why did you not tell me? Because I did not want to frighten you. Claire leaned back. People keep information from children because they do not want to frighten them. I know. Do you? Ethan looked down at his untouched food. Claire studied him. Do you know something about me? His eyes lifted. The question came too close. What would I know I do not know? That is why I am asking. He could tell her. The restaurant was busy. Grant was close. Claire would be safer with the truth than she was without it. But Ethan imagined the way she would look at him after learning he had known from the first night. He imagined Victor learning that Claire had been warned. He imagined Sullivan men reaching her before Raymond's people could move her. Fear took the shape of silence. No, he said. Claire watched him. Then she looked toward the market lights. My mother used to say silence is still an answer. What did she mean? That people reveal themselves by what they refuse to say. Ethan felt the sentence settle between them. Claire stirred her soup. My father died before I was born. He looked at her. She told me he sold medical equipment. There was a highway accident in Oregon. Ethan knew Raymond Vale had never sold anything legal in his life. He also knew Laura had built the lie carefully enough for Claire to carry it for 21 years. Do you remember him? He asked. Claire gave him a tired smile. That would be impressive. Did she talk about him? Only when I asked. What did she say? That he was charming, complicated, and better as a memory. Ethan looked toward the rain beyond the awning. That sounds like someone she loved. Claire's expression softened. Maybe. She folded her hands around the bowl. I used to think losing someone I never met should not hurt. Does it? Sometimes. She looked at him. It is strange to miss an answer. Ethan wanted to tell her that the answer lived on Mercer Island, behind steel gates and armed guards. He wanted to tell her that Raymond had watched her first day of school from across the street, that Grant knew her work schedule, that men were willing to start a war over her blood. Instead, he sat beside her and let the lie remain alive. After dinner, they walked along the waterfront. Rain moved over Elliott Bay in silver lines. Ferries crossed the dark water with lights glowing against the mist. Claire pulled her coat tighter. Why did you go back to school? Ethan looked ahead. I needed a life that looked legitimate. Claire stopped walking. That is not the same as wanting one. He turned toward her. No. What do you want? The question was quiet. Nobody in Victor Sullivan's world asked men what they wanted. They asked what they could do, what they could endure, who they were willing to hurt. Ethan looked across the water, a door that locks from the inside. Claire waited. A room no one can enter because they own the building, he continued. A phone that only rings because someone wants to speak to me. She studied his face. That sounds lonely. It sounds quiet. Those are not the same. No. Claire resumed walking. I want to finish school. You will. I want to pay my mother's bills. You will. I want an apartment where the pipes do not sound like someone is trapped in the walls. Ethan looked at her. Ambitious. I am trying not to overwhelm you. He smiled. The distance between them narrowed. Claire's hand brushed his. Ethan stopped walking. She looked down, then back at him. He did not reach for her. Claire stepped closer. The kiss was brief, warm against the cold air. When she pulled away, Ethan's expression had changed. Not softened. Opened. Claire looked toward the water. That was probably a bad idea. Yes. She turned toward him. He added, Do it again. She laughed and kissed him a second time. Across the street, Grant Mercer watched from inside his sedan. His phone rested against his ear. Raymond Vale's voice came through the speaker. Is she safe? Yes. And Ward Grant watched Ethan place his coat around Claire's shoulders. He has not told Sullivan. Yet. No. Raymond remained silent. Grant looked toward Claire. He cares about her. That makes him more dangerous. Or less. Raymond's voice hardened. Do not confuse affection with loyalty. Grant ended the call without answering. The next morning, Detective Pike entered the records department at Harborview with a judge's electronic authorization. The authorization was false. The clerk never checked. Pike searched Laura Bennett's sealed files. 22 years earlier, Laura had treated an unidentified gunshot victim under a temporary number. A private physician had removed the patient before police arrived. The attached notes contained blood work medication records and one handwritten correction. Patient identity confirmed as Raymond Vale. Pike opened Claire's original birth record. The father's name had been removed from the public copy. It remained inside the sealed document. Raymond Elias Vale. Pike photographed every page. 1 hour later, he sat inside Victor Sullivan's office in Pioneer Square. Victor stood near a window overlooking the wet street. The room was lined with dark wood and old photographs of men who had built businesses through fear. Pike placed Claire's birth record on the desk. Victor read it once, then again. He picked up Claire's photograph. She looks like Laura. Pike raised an eyebrow. You knew her? Everyone knew of her. Victor walked toward a map of the Port of Tacoma. Colored markers covered the shipping terminals. 3 red lines showed routes controlled by Raymond Vale. Victor placed Claire's photograph over them. Raymond hid a daughter in plain sight. Pike poured himself a drink. What do you want done? Victor looked at Claire's face. I have offered Raymond money. Partnerships, territory. He refused. He insulted me. Victor smiled. Now he will listen. That afternoon, Ethan received a message ordering him to report to Pioneer Square. He entered Victor's office at 6. Pike was gone. Claire's photograph remained on the desk. It showed her sitting across from Ethan at the library. Victor lifted the image. You found her before I did. Ethan kept his expression still. Found who Victor smiled. Do not Insult me. He slid the birth record across the desk. Ethan did not touch it. Claire Bennett, Victor said. Daughter of Raymond Vale. Ethan looked at the photograph. Victor interpreted his silence as discipline. I underestimated you. I did not know. Of course you knew. Victor poured a drink. You sat beside the one person Raymond cannot afford to lose. Ethan realized the misunderstanding could keep Claire alive. For now, he allowed Victor to believe it. I was waiting until I confirmed it. Victor's smile widened. That is why I trust Marines. Patience. Ethan's stomach turned. Victor moved toward the port map. Raymond controls 3 routes I want. He will not trade them. He will for her. Ethan looked at him. What are you asking Friday night? Bring Claire to Warehouse 17 near Tacoma. Ethan's voice remained calm. How you have spent 3 weeks learning how she thinks. Victor turned. No public scene, no bruises. She enters believing she is safe. And after Raymond agrees, Victor lifted his glass. That depends on whether she has seen our faces. The room became silent. Ethan saw Claire beside the hospital bed. Claire laughing beneath the market lights. Claire asking whether she should fear him. He looked at Victor. She has no involvement in Vale business. She has Raymond's blood. That is not involvement. Victor's expression cooled. Do not become sentimental. I am being practical. No, you are forgetting what you are. Victor stepped closer. You belong to this family because I gave you a place when the Marines were finished with you. I cleared your debts. I buried your mistakes. I gave you work. Ethan held his gaze. And now I am giving you an opportunity. Victor placed Claire's photograph into Ethan's hand. Bring her to me. Ethan left the office with the photograph folded inside his coat. Rain had begun again. He walked 3 blocks before stopping beneath an awning. His phone rang. Claire. Ethan answered. You sound strange, she said. I need to see you. Now. Yes. A pause. Is something wrong? Ethan looked at the photograph. Yes. He called an old Marine friend named Daniel Reeves. They met inside a garage south of the city. Daniel listened while Ethan asked for 2 new identities, cash, and a vehicle that could cross into Canada without being traced. For you and the girl, Daniel asked. Ethan said nothing. Daniel leaned against the workbench. Victor will find you. I know. He will find everyone who helps you. I know. Then why are you doing this? Ethan looked toward the rain outside the garage. Because she asked me if she should be afraid of me. Daniel waited, and I told her no. Ethan returned to his apartment and packed 1 bag. Cash, a weapon, medical supplies, clothes for Claire based on sizes he had noticed but never meant to remember. He placed her photograph on the table. Across the street, Detective Pike lowered a camera. He sent the image of Ethan packing to Victor. Victor studied it. Then he called his men. Move the pickup forward. At 9 that evening, Claire reached the Seattle waterfront wearing Ethan's gloves. The dark water shifted beneath the pier. Wind pulled strands of hair across her face. Ethan stood near the railing with a bag at his feet. Claire slowed as she approached. You are scaring me. He looked past her. A black vehicle turned onto the pier. We need to leave. You said you needed to tell me something. I do. A second vehicle entered from the opposite side and stopped across the exit. Ethan reached beneath his coat. Claire saw the gun. Her face changed. Who are you? The first door opened. An armed man stepped into the rain. Ethan drew his gun. Claire stared at the weapon in his hand. For 3 weeks, those hands had held coffee, turned the pages of an economics book, and wrapped his coat around her shoulders. Now his finger rested beside the trigger, with the calm precision of someone who had done this before. Get behind me, he said. Claire did not move. Who are they? The man near the first vehicle raised his weapon. Ethan fired. The shot cracked across the waterfront. The man fell against the open door. Claire flinched as another bullet struck the railing beside them and sent sparks across the wet concrete. Ethan caught her around the waist and pulled her behind a thick support column. She shoved his hand away. Do not touch me. They are here for you. Who are they? A second man moved between the parked vehicles. Ethan leaned around the column and fired twice. The attacker disappeared behind the hood of a car. Claire pressed herself against the cold concrete. Her heart struck hard beneath her ribs. The waterfront had been nearly empty when she arrived. A few lights burned across Elliott Bay. Ferries moved in the distance, slow and bright against the dark water. Now gunfire echoed beneath the pier. The sound did not belong in the city, she knew. Neither did Ethan. He reached for the bag near his feet. Can you run? Claire looked toward the opposite end of the pier. The second vehicle blocked the exit. 2 more men stepped out. One carried a rifle. I can run, she said. I am not running anywhere until you tell me what this is. The rifle fired. Concrete broke beside Ethan's shoulder. He covered Claire with his body. Stay low. You brought me here. I brought you here to get you out of Seattle. Why? Because they were going to take you. Who? Ethan looked toward the vehicles. Sullivan. The name meant nothing to Claire. Before she could ask, headlights swept across the pier from the street. A dark sport utility vehicle struck the rear of one of the attacker's cars. Metal folded. The vehicle spun sideways. Armed men emerged from the new arrival. An older man in a dark coat led them. Claire recognized him. Not from the library, from her life. She had seen him outside her elementary school once standing near the crossing guard. At her high school graduation, he had occupied a seat near the back and left before the ceremony ended. 7 months earlier, he had stood beneath a tree across from her mother's funeral. Claire had assumed grief was creating patterns where none existed. Now the same man raised a pistol and shouted toward her. Miss Bennett, stay down! Ethan looked at him. Grant. Claire turned sharply. You know him? There was no time for an answer. The Sullivan men fired toward the new group. Grant's team returned fire. Glass exploded from the parked vehicles. A round struck the steel support above Claire, ringing through the pier. Ethan grabbed the bag and pulled her toward a service corridor near the water. Claire resisted. You know that man? Yes. He knows me. Yes. How Ethan's jaw tightened. I will explain when we are moving. You have been saying that for 3 weeks. An attacker appeared behind Ethan. Claire saw the shape of the gun before Ethan did. She grabbed a red emergency box mounted to the column and tore it free. The metal case was heavier than she expected. She threw it. It struck the attacker across the shoulder. His weapon moved off target. Ethan turned and fired. The man collapsed. Ethan looked at Claire. Good timing. I was aiming for his head. That is less comforting. He caught her hand and moved toward the corridor. This time Claire followed. Not because she trusted him, because the man on the ground had been aiming at his back. They reached the corner near a set of locked maintenance doors. Ethan tested the handle. It did not move. Claire looked at the wall panel. It needs an access card. Ethan fired once into the lock. The door opened. Claire stared at him. You could have damaged the mechanism. It opened. That is not the point. A bullet struck the frame behind them. Ethan pushed her through. The corridor smelled of salt water and old machinery. Emergency lights ran along the floor. Claire heard footsteps behind them. Ethan closed the damaged door and shoved a metal cart against it. Keep moving. They ran deeper into the service passage. The bag struck Ethan's leg with every step. Claire noticed blood along the side of his hand. She did not know whether it belonged to him. Where are we going? There is a loading entrance on the south side. How do you know I checked the building before you arrived? Claire stopped. Ethan turned. She looked at the bag, the gun, and the route he had already prepared. "You planned this. I planned to take you somewhere safe. Without telling me. I was going to tell you." "When?" After I was in the car, Ethan heard footsteps beyond the door. "We do not have time. You decided I would go with you before I arrived." "Yes." The honesty struck almost as hard as the lie. Claire stepped back. "You are exactly the person I should be afraid of." Something moved across Ethan's face, pain sharp and immediate. Then the damaged door crashed against the cart. Ethan raised his weapon. Maybe he said, "But I am not the person trying to put you in that car." The door opened several inches. A gun appeared through the gap. Ethan fired into the frame. The hand disappeared. He took Claire's arm, then released it before she could pull away. "Please." The word sounded unfamiliar in his voice. Claire looked at the door. Then she ran. They reached the loading entrance. Rain blew inside through the open dock. Grant's sport utility vehicle waited near the curb with the rear door open. Grant stood between Claire and the street, firing toward the pier. "Move!" he shouted. Claire ran toward him. A gunman appeared above the loading ramp. Ethan saw him and raised his weapon. The gunman fired first. Grant twisted. The bullet struck beneath his ribs. He fell against the vehicle. Claire reached him before he hit the ground. Grant. She did not know why she used his name. Perhaps because Ethan had. Perhaps because the man had watched her life from a distance long enough to become familiar without becoming known. Grant pressed one hand against his side. Blood spread between his fingers. Ethan shot the attacker above the ramp and moved toward them. "We need to go." Claire dropped to her knees beside Grant. "Open the back." "Claire, open it." Ethan obeyed. Claire pulled Grant's coat aside. The bullet had entered below his right ribs. Blood soaked his shirt. She searched for an exit wound. There was none. Through and through, Ethan asked. "No exit." Grant tried to rise. Claire forced him back. "Do not move. They are closing in. He will bleed out if we move him wrong." Ethan crouched beside her. "Tell me what you need." Claire looked at the bag near his feet. Medical supplies. He opened it. Inside were bandages, antiseptic medication cache, and 2 passports. Claire saw her photograph on one of them. Her name was different. She looked at Ethan. "You made me a passport." His eyes remained on Grant. "Tell me what you need." The gunfire moved closer. Claire pushed the betrayal aside. Pressure dressing. Gauze. Something rigid enough to support his side. Ethan handed her the supplies. She packed gauze against the wound and pressed hard. Grant groaned. "Stay with me," Claire said. His face had become pale. "You look like your mother." Claire's hands stopped for half a second. What Grant's eyes struggled to focus. Laura would be furious. "You knew my mother." Grant tried to speak. Blood touched the corner of his mouth. Claire looked at Ethan. He had gone still. "You knew he knew her." Ethan looked toward the pier. "We need to leave." Claire pressed harder against Grant's wound. "Answer me." A vehicle engine roared near the loading dock. Ethan fired toward the approaching headlights. The windshield cracked. The car turned away. Grant's hand closed around Claire's wrist. "Your father will kill me if you die." Claire stared at him. "My father is dead." Grant's eyes opened wider. "No." The word came out weak but certain. Claire felt the world shift beneath her. "My father died before I was born." "No." Grant looked at her as if he had been carrying the truth for too long. "Raymond Vale." Ethan looked away. That movement told Claire everything. She released one hand from Grant's wound and grabbed Ethan's sleeve. "You knew, Claire. You knew." Yes. The answer emptied the air from her lungs. Another bullet struck the rear of the vehicle. Ethan pulled the door wider. "We have to move him now." Claire wanted to scream. She wanted to strike Ethan, demand every answer, and refused to take another step until the world made sense again. Grant's pulse weakened beneath her fingers. The nurse inside her moved before the daughter could. "Help me lift him." Ethan placed one arm beneath Grant's shoulders. Claire supported his injured side. Together they moved him into the rear of the vehicle. Grant's men covered them from the loading dock. Ethan climbed into the driver's seat. Claire got into the back and kept pressure on the wound. The vehicle accelerated into the rain. A black car followed. Ethan turned sharply onto Alaskan Way. Claire slid across the seat but did not release Grant. His breathing had become shallow. "Stay awake," she said. Grant's eyes opened. "You were at my mother's funeral." "Yes." "You were at my graduation." "Yes." "The man outside my school." "Yes." Every answer made the memories more disturbing. "You were following me. Protecting." The word came out weak. Claire laughed once without humor. "You people love that word." A bullet struck the rear window. The reinforced glass held. Ethan checked the mirror. "They are still behind us." Claire looked at him through the reflection. "Who are they?" "Victor Sullivan's men." "Who is Victor Sullivan?" "A man who wants control of shipping routes owned by Raymond Vale." Claire pressed both hands against Grant's wound. "And they want me because they think my father cares whether I live." Ethan said nothing. "That is the answer." "Yes." Claire's voice broke. "You knew this the first night." "Yes." She saw the library again. The empty chair, the leaking coffee, the gloves. His smile when she caught the upside-down book. "You let me sit across from you for 3 weeks. I was trying to keep you safe. You were studying me. At first." The admission cut deeper than a denial. Claire looked down at Grant. His blood had reached her sleeves. And after that, Ethan turned the vehicle beneath an overpass. After that, I was trying to find a way out. Out of what? The Sullivan organization. The black car behind them moved closer. Ethan turned into a tunnel entrance beneath the city. Orange lights flashed across the windshield. Claire remembered bruises beneath his shirt. The message about a Friday collection. The gun hidden beneath his coat. "What do you do for them?" Ethan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Collections. What does that mean? I recover money." "How?" He did not answer. Claire understood anyway. "You hurt people." "Yes." Grant's eyes opened again. "He was ordered to take you." Claire stared at Ethan. The tunnel lights crossed his face in hard intervals. "Is that true?" Ethan looked at her through the mirror. "Yes." The word destroyed what remained. The pursuing car pulled beside them. A man lowered the passenger window. Ethan turned the wheel and struck the other vehicle against the tunnel wall. Metal screamed. The car fell behind. Claire reached toward the front console. A second gun rested inside an open compartment. She took it. Ethan saw the movement. "Claire, stop the car. We are not clear. Stop the car. There may be another team ahead." She pointed the weapon toward the dashboard. "Not at him." Her hands shook, but her voice did not. "Stop." Ethan looked at Grant in the mirror. Then he turned beneath an abandoned overpass and braked. Rain hammered the roof. Grant lay across the rear seat, breathing with difficulty. Ethan turned toward Claire. She held the gun between them. "Tell me everything. We need to get Grant to a surgeon. You will tell me while you drive." Ethan remained still. Claire's eyes filled, but she refused to blink. You knew my father was alive. Yes. How long? Since the first night in the library. How I recognized Grant. Why was he watching me? Raymond assigned him to protect you. My father sent a stranger to follow me for my entire life. Ethan looked toward Grant. Yes. Why did no one tell me your mother made Raymond promise to keep you outside his world? Claire tightened her grip on the gun. You knew my mother too. No. I knew the story. What story? Ethan took a breath. 22 years ago, Raymond was shot near the port of Tacoma. Laura treated him before police arrived. They became involved. She left after she learned she was pregnant. Claire stared at him. My mother told me my father sold medical equipment. She wanted you to have an ordinary life. I had an ordinary lie. Ethan did not defend Laura. Claire looked at Grant. And you watched us. Grant whispered. Every day. You knew when she got sick. His face tightened. Yes. You knew when I could not pay the bills. Yes. Anger sharpened her voice. What kind of protection lets someone drown from a safe distance? Grant closed his eyes. I followed orders. Claire looked toward Ethan. And you, I belonged to Victor Sullivan. Belonged. My father died when I was young. After the Marines, I came back with debt and no work. Victor gave me a place. He made you a criminal. I made choices. Claire had not expected that answer. No excuse, no attempt to make himself innocent. Ethan continued. Victor discovered your identity through a detective named Aaron Pike. He believed I had approached you deliberately. You let him believe it. Yes. Why? Because it gave me time. To do what? To get you out before Friday. Claire looked at the passport inside the open bag. You planned to take me across the border. Yes. Without telling me who I was. I was going to tell you tonight. When I had no car, no documents, and no one else to trust. Ethan looked down. Yes. The silence that followed hurt more than shouting. Claire lowered the gun slightly. Why did you not tell me the first night if Sullivan learned you knew he would move sooner? That is not the whole reason. No. Then say it. Ethan looked at her. I was afraid. Of Victor. Of you. Claire's expression changed. You were afraid of me. I was afraid you would look at me the way you are looking at me now. Her voice broke. You made sure I never had another choice. Ethan absorbed the words. He did not ask her to understand. Grant coughed. Blood appeared on his lips again. Claire returned the gun to the console. We need a hospital. Ethan started the engine. A public hospital is not safe. He needs surgery. Raymond has a private medical team on Mercer Island. Claire looked at him. You want to take me to the father who watched my mother die from a distance? It is the fastest way to keep Grant alive. And after that I take you wherever you choose. She laughed bitterly. You have not respected a single choice I made tonight. I know. The immediate answer silenced her. Ethan drove. Claire continued pressing against Grant's wound. Rain blurred the city beyond the windows. Her thoughts moved in broken images. Her mother singing badly in the kitchen. A man beneath a tree at the funeral. Ethan placing gloves on a bus stop bench. The name, Raymond Vale. She had heard it before. Everyone in Seattle had. Vale Shipping, Vale Construction, Vale Foundation, charity galas, political donations, rumors about men who disappeared after challenging his contracts. Claire had never connected the name to herself. She looked toward Ethan. Is Raymond Vale a criminal? Yes. What kind? Ethan was quiet. Claire already knew the answer. The kind people fear. Yes. And Victor Sullivan? The same. Then why are they enemies? Control of the port, labor contracts, smuggling routes, money. Grant opened his eyes. Raymond wanted you away from it. Claire looked at him. He still let it shape my entire life. They crossed the bridge toward Mercer Island. The city lights faded behind them. Large homes appeared through the trees. Claire saw a set of black gates ahead. Cameras turned toward the vehicle. Armed men emerged from a guard station. Ethan slowed. Grant lifted one bloody hand and entered a code into the panel beside the window. The gates opened. Claire looked at the estate beyond them. Stone walls, tall windows, men in dark suits standing beneath the rain. A world she had been protected from. A world that had already reached her. The vehicle stopped beneath a covered entrance. The doors opened immediately. Medical staff rushed toward Grant. Claire climbed out with her hands still pressed against the wound. A physician approached. "Miss Bennett, we have him. I need to give you the details." The staff placed Grant on a stretcher. Claire walked beside them. Gunshot below the right ribs, no exit wound. Blood pressure dropped during transport. He remained conscious, but his breathing became shallow 10 minutes ago. The physician nodded. "We will take it from here." Claire stopped as the stretcher disappeared through a set of doors. Blood covered her hands. Rainwater darkened her hair. Ethan stood several feet behind her. Armed men surrounded him. None had touched him yet. Claire turned toward the entrance hall. A man waited inside. He was tall, silver-haired, and dressed in a dark suit without a tie. His face carried the controlled stillness of someone accustomed to every room becoming silent when he entered. Claire recognized her own eyes. That was the first thing she noticed. Not his power, not the guards. Her eyes in an older face. Raymond Vale looked at her as though he had imagined this moment for 21 years and still had no idea what to say. Claire. She stepped into the hall. Blood dripped from her fingers onto the pale stone floor. "You know my name. Yes. You knew where I lived." His face tightened. "Yes. You knew my mother was dying." The silence lasted too long. "Yes." Claire moved closer. Every person in the hall watched her. She did not care. And you let her believe she had to face it alone. Raymond looked toward the medical doors. "Laura refused my help. She refused your money, so you gave her nothing. She wanted you outside this life. You watched me struggle from parked cars. I kept you alive." Claire laughed and the sound broke in the middle. "You all keep saying that." Raymond glanced toward Ethan. The air changed. "Take him outside." 2 guards seized Ethan's arms. Ethan did not resist. Claire turned. "What are you doing?" "He belongs to Sullivan. He saved my life. He was ordered to deliver you." "I know." Raymond's gaze returned to her. "Then step aside." The guards moved Ethan toward the entrance. Claire placed herself between them. Raymond stopped. "You have known me for less than a minute," she said. "Do not make the first thing you do as my father another decision about my life." Raymond studied her. The men holding Ethan waited. Claire's hands trembled at her sides, not from fear, from exhaustion, anger, and everything she had been forced to carry since the first shot. Raymond looked at Ethan. "Release him." The guards obeyed. Ethan remained near the door. Claire did not look at him. She faced Raymond. "I want the truth. You will have it. All of it. Yes. No more protection. No more promises made around me. No more deciding what I can survive." Raymond's expression revealed nothing, but he nodded. Claire looked toward the corridor where Grant had disappeared. Then she looked at Ethan. His face was bruised by rain blood, and the knowledge that the woman who had once saved a chair for him could no longer bear to stand near him. "Do not confuse coming here with trusting you," she said. "I will not." Raymond turned toward the inner rooms of the estate. Claire followed him. For the first time in her life, she walked toward the truth, knowing it might be more dangerous than every lie that had protected her. The hallway opened into a wide sitting room overlooking Lake Washington. Rain moved across the glass in silver sheets. The city lights were visible in the distance, softened by water and darkness. Everything in the room looked expensive. Nothing looked lived in. A fire burned beneath a stone mantel. Leather chairs faced one another across a low table. Framed photographs covered one wall, but none showed children. Claire wondered whether Raymond had removed every trace of her before she arrived. Ethan remained near the entrance with 2 guards behind him. Raymond gestured toward a chair. "Sit." Claire looked at him. No. His expression changed slightly. It was the look of a man unused to hearing the word inside his own home. Claire kept standing. "My mother is dead. Grant is in surgery. Men tried to kidnap me because of a father I was told never existed. You can begin talking." Raymond looked toward Ethan. "This conversation does not concern him. It concerns him more than it should." Ethan met Claire's eyes, then looked away. Raymond spoke to the guards. "Take him downstairs." Claire stepped between them again. "No." Raymond's jaw tightened. "He works for Victor Sullivan. He also turned his gun on Sullivan's men. That does not make him innocent. I did not say it did." Claire looked at Ethan. "I want him where I can see him." Ethan seemed surprised by the decision. Raymond did not. He studied Claire as though she were a problem he had expected eventually but had not prepared to solve. The medical doors opened at the far end of the hall. A physician stepped into the room, removing blood-stained gloves. Claire moved toward him. "Grant. The bullet damaged his liver. We controlled the bleeding. He is stable for now." Claire released a breath she had not realized she was holding. "Can I see him?" "Not yet. Was there damage to the lung?" "No." The trajectory stayed below the diaphragm. Claire nodded. The physician looked at the blood covering her sleeves. "Your pressure dressing bought him time." Raymond's gaze moved to Claire's hands. Something passed through his face. Pride, perhaps. Or grief. Claire turned away before she could decide. A woman entered from the opposite hall. She had silver hair cut neatly at her jaw and wore a dark blue dress beneath a long coat. Her posture was elegant, but her expression held no fear of Raymond. She stopped when she saw Claire. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then she crossed the room. "I am Evelyn Vale." Claire recognized the family resemblance around the eyes. "His sister." "Yes." "Did you know about me?" Evelyn did not insult her with hesitation. "Yes." Claire laughed quietly. "Of course." Evelyn looked toward Raymond. "I told him this day would come." Raymond's voice hardened. "This is not the time." It became the time when bullets reached her before the truth did. Claire looked at Evelyn. "You knew my mother, I did. Did you help her disappear?" "Yes." Raymond turned. "Evelyn." She ignored him. Laura believed distance would keep you safe. Raymond believed surveillance would do the rest. Both of them were certain. Neither of them asked what the lie would cost you. Claire studied her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because everyone else in this room is still deciding which truth you are ready to hear." The accusation landed across the room. Raymond did not respond. Claire looked back at him. "My mother refused your help. She refused money that could be traced. And you accepted that. She was afraid Sullivan would discover you. She was sick. I offered doctors. Secret doctors. The best I could find. Did she accept them?" "No." "Then you stopped trying." Raymond stepped closer. "You think I did nothing. I think you watched. I kept men near you every day. You knew when our heat was disconnected." His expression tightened. "You knew when she missed work because she was too sick to stand." "Yes." "You knew I took extra shifts while studying because we could not pay for treatment." "Yes." Claire's voice became quieter. You control shipping companies, judges, police officers, and half the unions in this city. You found a way to move anything you wanted across borders, but helping your daughter pay rent was too dangerous. Raymond did not look away. Any large transfer could have led Sullivan to you. So you chose secrecy over our suffering. I chose your life. Claire stared at him. You chose what let you sleep. The room became silent. Evelyn closed her eyes briefly. Raymond looked toward the fire. Claire saw the answer in his face. Not guilt alone, recognition. She had struck the part of him no enemy had managed to reach. Ethan remained near the doorway. He said nothing. Claire was grateful for that. She did not need another man explaining Raymond to her. The physician returned. Miss Bennett Grant is awake. Claire followed him through the medical doors. The private treatment room looked like a small hospital suite. Monitors surrounded the bed. Grant lay beneath white sheets, his face pale against the pillow. His eyes opened when Claire approached. You stayed. You were bleeding. That was not an answer. Claire pulled a chair beside the bed. You watched me for 21 years. Yes. You were at my mother's funeral. Grant's face tightened. Yes. Did Raymond attend? No. Claire looked through the window into the hall. Raymond stood beyond the glass. Why not Laura asked him not to? She was dead. The promise was not. Claire turned back to Grant. Did you know how sick she was? Yes. Did you speak to her? Sometimes? The answer made Claire still. When after appointments, when you were in class, she knew I was watching. Claire looked toward Raymond again. My mother knew. She knew Raymond never stopped. Did she hate him? Grant breathed slowly through the pain. No. Did she love him? Yes. Claire lowered her eyes. The answer did not make anything easier. It only made the lie more human. Grant shifted beneath the sheets. Pain crossed his face. Claire reached toward the medication control and checked the timing. You need to rest. There is something you should know. She looked at him. Laura was planning to tell you. When after graduation? Claire almost smiled. My mother always believed difficult conversations should wait until after exams. Grant's mouth moved faintly. She left something for you. Evelyn entered carrying a wooden box. Raymond remained outside. Claire looked at the box. Where was it? With me. Why did you not give it to me after she died? Evelyn set it on the table. Laura instructed me to wait until Raymond's world reached you. Claire looked toward the blood on her coat. I think it arrived. Evelyn unlocked the box with a small brass key. Inside were letters tied with faded ribbon, a photograph, an old hospital identification card, and a digital recorder. Claire lifted the photograph first. Laura sat in a hospital room wearing blue scrubs. She looked younger than Claire had ever known her. Raymond stood beside her. He had one arm in a sling and a bandage beneath his shirt. In his arms was a newborn wrapped in a white blanket. Claire. Raymond was looking down at the child. The expression on his face did not belong to the man standing behind the glass. It was open, terrified, almost gentle. Claire turned the photograph over. Laura's handwriting covered the back. The only day he held you. Claire pressed her lips together. Evelyn placed the recorder beside her. She made this 2 weeks before she died. Claire pressed play. Static filled the room. Then Laura's voice. Weak, familiar. Claire closed her eyes. My sweet girl, if you are hearing this, then the truth found you before I could give it to you myself. Claire gripped the edge of the chair. I told you your father died because I believed a clean lie would hurt less than a dangerous truth. I was wrong about the clean part. Laura coughed. The recording paused. When I met Raymond Vale, he was bleeding on an emergency room floor under another man's name. He was arrogant, frightening, and convinced he could leave before I finished treating him. A faint laugh entered her voice. I made him stay. Claire looked through the glass. Raymond had turned away. We loved each other. Not wisely, not safely, but truly. Claire lowered her head. When I learned I was pregnant, Raymond wanted to build walls around us. Guards, houses, cars, men at every door. He called it protection. I saw a life where you would never know whether someone loved you or feared your name. Laura's breathing became weaker. I asked him to stay away. He agreed because I made him promise. He watched from a distance because distance was the only form of love I allowed him to offer. Claire wiped at her face. I should have told you sooner. Every year I planned to. Every year I found another reason to wait. School, your birthday, my illness, your exams. Her mother's voice broke. I was afraid that once you knew his name it would become larger than your own. Claire looked at the photograph. It does not have to. The recording continued. You are not responsible for Raymond's crimes. You are not responsible for my fear. You are not responsible for protecting the choices we made before you could speak. Laura took a slow breath. If he is standing near you when you hear this, tell him I never stopped loving him. Claire looked toward Raymond. He remained motionless beyond the glass. And tell him love did not make him your father. Showing up must do that. The recording ended. No one spoke. Claire stared at the recorder until the small screen went dark. Evelyn rested one hand near her shoulder but did not touch her. Claire stood. She carried the recorder into the hallway. Raymond looked at it. You heard, yes. He lowered his eyes. She said she loved you. Pain moved through his face. Claire continued. She also said you have not earned the right to call yourself my father. Raymond looked at her. I know. The answer surprised her. She had expected defense, authority, a demand that blood meant something by itself. Instead, he looked older. Claire handed the recorder to Evelyn. A guard entered the hall quickly. Mr. Vale, Victor Sullivan is calling. Raymond's expression changed. The grief disappeared behind the face of a man who had survived decades of war. Trace it. We are trying. The call transferred to the room. Victor's voice came through the speaker. Raymond. Raymond looked at Claire. What do you want? You already know. Claire recognized the calm cruelty beneath Victor's voice. He sounded like a man enjoying a private performance. Raymond said nothing. Victor continued. 3 shipping routes at Tacoma. Full control. No interference from your unions or inspectors. You attacked my daughter. A quiet laugh came through the speaker. So you finally said it aloud. Raymond's hand tightened. Claire moved closer to the table. Victor continued. You hid her well. Nursing school was a thoughtful touch. Ordinary apartment. Dead mother. No visible money. Claire felt the words like hands searching through her life. You made one mistake, Victor said. You believed secrets stay loyal. Raymond looked toward the guards. Find Pike. Victor laughed again. Aaron is already somewhere you cannot reach. Claire thought of Hannah. Her professors. The hospital. Victor seemed to hear the fear in the silence. I know where Miss Bennett works. I know which bus she takes. I know the names of the nurses on her floor. Claire stepped toward the speaker. And Hannah Pierce? Victor asked. She lives in a pleasant building. Poor security. Claire's blood turned cold. Raymond looked at her. Victor continued. Give me the roots by tomorrow night. Otherwise, I stop treating your daughter like a valuable hostage and begin treating everyone around her like a message. The call ended. Raymond turned toward his men. "Lock down the hospital. Move every person connected to Claire." Claire stepped into his path. "No." His eyes narrowed. "You heard him." "Yes." "Then you understand. I understand that Victor expects you to react with force. He threatened civilians, and you will send armed men into hospitals and apartment buildings. People will panic. Pike will know where every team is moving." Raymond looked at her differently, not as a daughter, as someone speaking inside the problem. Claire pointed toward the conference room. "I want every file you have on Victor." One of the guards looked at Raymond. Raymond did not answer immediately. Claire held his gaze. "He used my name to enter this family. That makes me part of the situation whether you approve or not. You are not trained for this. I kept Grant alive while men shot at us. That is not strategy. No. It is evidence that I do not freeze when someone else is bleeding." Ethan spoke from the doorway. "She is right." Raymond turned toward him. "You do not speak unless asked." Claire looked at Raymond. "He knows Victor better than anyone here. He also served him. That is why he is useful." Ethan absorbed the word without reacting. Claire noticed. She had spent her whole life being useful to people who hid their decisions from her. She did not want to repeat the pattern. She faced Ethan. "Will you help?" "Yes." "No conditions. No. No secrets." His eyes held hers. "No." Claire looked back at Raymond. "Open the files." The conference room overlooked the lake. Maps of Seattle, Tacoma, and the surrounding ports covered one wall. Photographs of Sullivan businesses were arranged across a second. Claire sat at the long table with Raymond, Evelyn, Ethan, 3 Vale captains, and the head of security replacing Grant. The men looked at her blood-stained clothing and tried not to show doubt. One of them failed. His name was Patrick Ross. He was in his 60s with a heavy ring on one hand and the expression of someone who believed power had a familiar face. "This is not a place for a nursing student." Claire looked at him. "Then explain why Victor changed his entire operation because of me." Patrick leaned back. "That does not make you a strategist." "No. It makes me the person he believes can control Raymond." Raymond's gaze shifted toward her. Claire continued. "If Victor wanted only the port, he would have killed me tonight and started a war. He wants my father to surrender publicly." Patrick looked toward Raymond. Claire studied Victor's photographs. "He likes witnesses." Ethan nodded. "He does." She looked at him. "When he punishes someone, does he do it privately?" "No. He brings his captains. When he gives orders, he makes the room watch." Claire turned toward the port map. "He does not only want the routes, he wants Raymond humiliated in front of every person who depends on his authority." Raymond watched her. "What are you suggesting? A surrender he can see?" Patrick laughed. Claire ignored him. "Victor thinks Ethan still wants advancement." Ethan looked at her. "He believed I approached you for him. Then let him continue believing it." Raymond's voice became cold. "No." Claire faced him. "You said I would have the truth. You did not say I had to remain outside the decisions. I will not use you as bait. Victor is already using me as bait. That does not mean I will." Claire leaned forward. "You cannot protect me by removing me from a plan built around my existence." Raymond's expression hardened. Evelyn spoke calmly. "She sounds like Laura. That does not help." "It was not meant to." Claire opened the file containing Victor's known properties. "He will not come to an empty warehouse after tonight. He knows Ethan betrayed him." Ethan nodded. "He will expect a trap. Then we give him something too public to look like one." Patrick frowned. What Claire looked toward the photograph of St. James Cathedral taken during a Vale charity event. A ceremony. The room became quiet. Raymond understood first. "No," Claire continued. A private wedding blessing. Ethan and me. Ethan stared at her. Claire did not look away. We tell the city Raymond is bringing Ethan into the family and transferring Port Authority through marriage. Patrick shook his head. That is absurd. It is exactly the kind of humiliation Victor wants to interrupt. Ethan leaned toward the map. He would think I convinced Claire to trust me again. Claire looked at him. Can you make him believe that? Yes. The answer carried no pride. Raymond stood. This discussion is over. Claire remained seated. Why? Because I will not place you at an altar while Sullivan's men surround the building. You left me unprotected inside a lie for 21 years. Do not become protective only when I disagree with you. Raymond turned toward her. Every man in the room became still. Claire saw anger in his face. She also saw fear. Real fear. You think I can watch someone point a gun at you? He asked. Claire stood. No. I think you have to trust me to stand somewhere dangerous without turning me into property. Raymond looked at the floor plans. Evelyn spoke. It can work. Patrick turned toward her. You support this. I support giving Claire the authority Victor already assumes she has. Ethan looked at Claire. You understand he may enter before the ceremony begins. Yes. He may bring civilians into the line of fire. Then we limit the guest list and prepare evacuation routes. Raymond's head of security spoke. Federal agents. Raymond looked at him sharply. Claire answered. Evelyn said she has contacts she trusts. Evelyn nodded. A federal organized crime unit has been building a case against Pike and Sullivan for years. Patrick frowned. We do not invite federal agents into Vale business. Claire looked at him. Victor threatened hospital workers. I am no longer interested in protecting the pride of men who solve every problem with guns. Patrick's face reddened. Raymond raised one hand. The room fell silent. He looked at Claire. If I agree you follow security instructions, I agree to reasonable instructions. His expression tightened. Claire continued before he could respond. Hannah receives protection, so does every nurse Victor identified. Done. No guests enter without being checked. Done. Grant's people coordinate with federal agents. Raymond hesitated. Done. Victor is taken alive if possible. Patrick laughed again. Raymond silenced him with a look. Why? Raymond asked. Because killing him ends one man. Evidence ends the structure protecting him. Evelyn smiled faintly. Claire continued. I control the medical evacuation plan. Ethan receives no orders about me that I do not hear. Raymond looked toward Ethan. Done. And I can end the operation at any time. Raymond was quiet. Claire held his gaze. Finally he nodded. Yes. The planning lasted through the night. Claire studied cathedral floor plans while Ethan identified the tactics Victor preferred. She marked areas where wounded guests could be moved away from windows. She ordered emergency kits placed near the altar, sacristy, choir stairs, and eastern exit. The Vale men planned firing positions. Claire removed 2 of them because stray rounds could enter the main aisle. Patrick objected. Claire made him stand on the altar while she traced the line of fire with a laser pointer. He stopped objecting. By morning, the operation had a shape. The invitation would describe a private family blessing. No legal marriage would occur. Camouflaged federal agents would monitor the perimeter. Grant would oversee security remotely from his hospital bed. Ethan would contact Victor and claim Claire still trusted him. The cathedral would become a stage. Victor would believe the performance belonged to him. That afternoon, Ethan made the call. Claire stood beside him in Raymond's office. Victor answered after one ring. You disappointed me. Ethan's voice remained calm. I corrected the situation. You fired on my men. They moved too soon. A pause. Victor sounded amused. And Claire. With me? Claire held her breath. Ethan continued. Raymond thinks I saved her. He is bringing me into the family. Victor did not respond. Ethan looked at Claire. She nodded. We are receiving a blessing at St. James tomorrow, Ethan said. Raymond will sign control of the Tacoma routes afterward. Victor laughed softly. You expect me to believe Raymond Vale is giving you his daughter, no? Ethan looked at Claire. I expect you to believe she chose me. The words touched a place she was not prepared to examine. Victor remained silent. Then he said, Which entrance? East service door. Security. I control one checkpoint. You always were ambitious. The call ended. Ethan placed the phone on the desk. Claire looked at him. Did he believe you? He believed the part he wanted. That is enough. It is usually more powerful than proof. Raymond left to meet the federal coordinator. Evelyn went to arrange Claire's clothing for the ceremony. For the first time since the waterfront attack, Claire and Ethan were alone. He stood across the room. Distance had become his way of respecting her anger. Claire looked at the photograph of her mother inside the wooden box. I do not know what was real. Ethan said nothing. She looked at him. The coffee, real. The walks, yes. The gloves, yes. The kiss, his eyes held hers. Yes. You knew who I was every time. Yes. Claire lowered her gaze. That changes them. I know. You should have told me. Yes. You should have let me decide whether I wanted you near me. Yes. His agreement made anger difficult to hold in one shape. Claire crossed her arms. Do you regret meeting me? No. Do you regret lying every hour? She studied him. You are good at saying the right thing now. I am trying to stop saying the thing that keeps you close. The sentence made her still. Ethan looked toward the window. I first stayed because knowing you made me valuable to Victor. Claire's face tightened. He continued before fear could stop him. Then you became the only place in my life where I did not feel owned. Claire looked at him. That is not fair. No. You cannot make me responsible for saving you from your choices. I am not asking you to. Ethan removed his gun and placed it on the desk. If you want me gone tomorrow, say it. Claire looked at the weapon, then at him. I do not trust you. I know. I may never trust you the way I did. I know, she breathed slowly. But Victor will be watching you. Yes. And Raymond's men will be watching me. Yes. I need one person at that altar who will listen when I say no. Ethan's face changed. Claire continued. Be there. It was not forgiveness. It was a choice. The following evening, Claire entered St. James Cathedral before the guests arrived. Candles burned along the aisle. White flowers covered the altar. The stained glass windows cast blue and red light across the stone floor. Ethan sat alone near the front. Claire approached. He began to stand. She looked at the empty place beside him. You can sit. He settled back. Claire sat beside him. For several moments, neither spoke. The cathedral held their silence without asking it to become something else. Ethan looked toward the altar. When you asked to sit with me at the library, I thought you had terrible instincts. Claire almost smiled. I thought you looked harmless. That was worse. She looked at his hands. No weapon Raymond has it? Voluntarily. Mostly. Claire turned toward him. If this fails, it will not. That is not what I was going to say. Ethan waited. If this fails, do not decide for me. His face became serious. I will not. If I tell you to leave me and help someone else, you listen. He did not answer immediately. Claire saw the resistance, the fear. Then he nodded. I listen. The next morning, Evelyn helped Claire dress in a private room beside the cathedral. The ivory gown was simple, no long train, no veil. nothing heavy enough to slow her movements. A small medical kit was secured beneath the altar table. A transmitter rested against Claire's wrist. Raymond waited outside the room. When Claire emerged, he held out his arm. She looked at it. For 21 years, he had been a shadow near the edge of her life. Now he wanted to guide her down the aisle as though presence could be created by tradition. "I will walk myself." Pain crossed his face. He lowered his arm. Claire entered the cathedral alone. Judges, politicians, union leaders, and business owners turned to watch her. Some knew who she was. Others only knew Raymond Vale had suddenly produced a daughter. Ethan waited at the altar in a black suit. Claire moved toward him. Each step echoed through the cathedral. Raymond followed at a distance. He did not lead her. He did not claim her. Claire reached the altar. Ethan extended his hand, but did not touch her. She placed her fingers in his. The cathedral doors closed behind them. For one breath, nothing moved. Candlelight trembled along the stone columns. White flowers surrounded the altar. Rain touched the stained glass in soft, steady taps. Claire stood beside Ethan with her hand resting in his. His grip remained loose. The officiant opened the ceremonial book. Guests settled into their seats. Raymond stood in the first row near Evelyn. His eyes moved from Claire to every entrance, every balcony, every unfamiliar face. Several federal agents sat among the guests in dark suits. They looked like lawyers, donors, and political staff. Grant watched through the cathedral security feed from a private room at the Mercer Island estate. His voice came quietly through the transmitter at Claire's wrist. "Main entrance, secure. East corridor, secure. No sign of Sullivan." Claire lowered her bouquet slightly and touched the transmitter once. Message received. Ethan looked at her. "Anything, nothing yet." The officiant began. "We gather here in the presence of family and trusted friends." Claire almost looked toward Raymond. Family was a word people in this room used too easily. For Raymond, it meant blood loyalty and men willing to die without asking questions. For Victor Sullivan, it meant obedience. For Ethan, it had once meant debt. For Claire, it had meant a small apartment, an overworked nurse singing badly in the kitchen, and a woman who had lied because she was afraid of what the truth might become. The officiant continued speaking. Claire listened to the room instead. A chair moved near the rear aisle. A man coughed beneath the choir balcony. Rain grew heavier against the roof. Ethan's thumb shifted once against her hand. Not tightening. A question. Claire looked at him. His eyes moved toward the eastern side of the cathedral. One of the private contractors near the security checkpoint had changed position. The man was supposed to face the aisle. Instead, he watched the doors. Claire followed Ethan's gaze. A second contractor touched his ear. The signal was subtle. Too subtle for a guest. "Not for Ethan. Pike," Ethan whispered. Claire kept her face forward. "What about him?" "He changed the checkpoint team." Grant's voice entered through the transmitter. "I lost the east camera." Claire's pulse changed. How feed was cut from inside. Raymond noticed the movement at the eastern checkpoint. His hand moved toward the front of his jacket. Claire shook her head once. "Not yet." The officiant looked toward Ethan. "Do you come here freely and with honest intention?" Ethan looked at Claire. "Yes." The answer belonged to the performance. The way he said it did not. Claire heard the truth beneath the single word. A sound came from the cathedral entrance, metal against stone. The main doors opened. Victor Sullivan stepped inside. He wore a dark suit and no coat despite the rain. Water shone across his silver hair. Detective Aaron Pike walked several steps behind him. The security contractors at the entrance drew weapons. Guests began turning. Victor smiled. "Please continue." Raymond stepped into the aisle. You were not invited. Victor looked at the altar. I received a very persuasive invitation. His gaze settled on Ethan. From a man I once trusted. Ethan released Claire's hand. He moved slightly in front of her. Victor noticed. That answer is clear enough. Pike closed the cathedral doors. The men disguised as contractors spread across the rear aisle. Federal agents remained seated. Their orders required Victor to reveal the purpose of the attack before they moved. Victor looked at Claire. So this is Raymond's hidden daughter. Claire met his eyes. You threatened nurses to bring yourself into a church. Victor smiled faintly. You sound like your mother. Raymond's voice became cold. You do not speak about Laura. I knew her before she learned to fear you. Raymond took one step forward. Claire looked at him. Do not. He stopped. Victor watched the exchange with interest. You obey her already. Raymond said nothing. Victor looked toward the officiant. Were you about to ask for vows? The officiant closed the book. Victor lifted one hand. A gun appeared near the rear balcony. Then another. The guests finally understood. Someone screamed. The first bullet tore through the stained glass. Blue and red fragments exploded across the aisle. People dropped beneath the pews. Ethan pulled Claire behind a stone column. He drew a gun from beneath the altar ledge where Grant's team had placed it. Claire stared at him. The moment matched the image that had lived in the opening of her fear. The quiet student from the library was gone. The man beside her moved like the Marine he had hidden. A Sullivan gunman fired from the rear aisle. Ethan returned 2 shots. The man fell behind a pew. Claire looked at Ethan as glass continued falling. The first thing I ever asked you was whether I could sit with you. He turned toward her. You already knew who I was. Yes. And you stayed. His face tightened. I stayed for the wrong reasons. Gunfire struck the column. Stone dust filled the air. Ethan moved closer to shield her. But I am here now because leaving you would be the last lie. A wounded man collapsed near the choir stairs. He wore the black clothing of Sullivan's team. Blood poured from his thigh. Claire started toward him. Ethan caught her arm. No. He is bleeding. He came here to kill you. He is still bleeding. Another round struck the floor. Ethan pulled her back behind the column. The wounded man cried out and pressed both hands against his leg. Blood spread quickly beneath him. Claire looked at Ethan. I can reach him. There are shooters above us. You said you would listen. His jaw tightened. Claire held his gaze. Cover me. Fear moved through his expression. Not fear for himself. The fear that had once made him decide for her. He looked toward the balcony, counted the rhythm of the shots, and nodded. 3 seconds after I fire. Claire crouched. Ethan leaned around the column and fired toward the upper level. The hidden shooter pulled back. Now. Claire ran. A bullet struck the pew beside her. Wood splintered against her dress. She dropped to the wounded man's side. He tried to raise his weapon. Claire kicked it away. Do not move. His face had gone pale. You are helping me. You have a femoral bleed. He looked down at the blood. I do not know what that means. It means you die quickly if you keep fighting me. Claire pulled a tourniquet from the medical kit beneath her dress. She wrapped it high around his thigh. The man screamed when she tightened it. Ethan moved behind the nearest pew and continued covering her. Claire. I need 10 seconds. You have 5. She tightened the tourniquet until the bleeding slowed. The wounded man grabbed her wrist. There is a device. Claire looked at him. What choir platform? His breathing came fast. Victor put it beneath the choir platform. Explosive. He nodded. Timer remote. Claire touched the transmitter. Grant there is an explosive beneath the choir platform. Static answered. Then his voice. I see a second circuit. It is connected to the east control panel. Claire looked toward Pike. He stood near the cathedral doors with one hand inside his coat. "He has the trigger," Grant replied. "Evacuate the north side. Federal team is moving." Claire looked at the wounded man. "Why did you tell me?" His face twisted with pain. "You stopped the bleeding. That does not erase what you came here to do." "I know." Claire rose. Ethan reached her and pulled her behind the pew as federal agents drew their weapons. "Federal officers, drop your weapons." The cathedral erupted. Guests crawled toward the side aisles. Sullivan's men fired from the balcony. Raymond's security team returned fire from behind stone columns. Claire saw Evelyn guiding the officiant toward the sacristy. Raymond remained near the center aisle. He had a clear view of Victor. Victor had a clear view of Claire. Pike moved toward the eastern exit. Claire pointed. "He has the trigger." Ethan followed her hand. "I see him. Grant needs the circuit cut." Ethan checked the distance. "I can reach Pike." Claire looked toward the choir platform. A group of guests was trapped beneath it. "No, help them move." Ethan looked at her. "Claire, listen." He fought the instinct to refuse. Then he nodded. He moved toward the trapped guests. Claire ran toward the eastern wall. Pike saw her. He drew his gun. Raymond fired first. The bullet struck the stone beside Pike's shoulder. Pike ducked behind a column. Claire reached the fire control panel. The screen had been locked. "Grant, I need access. Remove the lower cover." Claire pulled at the metal plate. It did not move. She took a small instrument from the medical kit and forced it into the seam. The cover opened. Wires filled the compartment. Which one blue line connected to the secondary relay? "There are 4 blue lines. Trace the one marked C7. Claire found it. Pike appeared at the end of the corridor. He raised his gun. Ethan struck him from the side. The weapon fired into the ceiling. Pike and Ethan crashed against the wall. Claire pulled the wire. The emergency lights went dark. Grant's voice came through. "Trigger circuit disabled." Pike drove his elbow into Ethan's ribs. Ethan staggered. Pike reached for the fallen gun. Claire kicked it beneath the pews. Pike turned toward her. "You should have stayed ignorant." He grabbed her shoulder. Claire drove the metal tool into the back of his hand. Pike shouted and released her. Ethan struck him across the jaw. Federal agents reached them and forced Pike to the floor. Agent Melissa Grant, the lead investigator working with Evelyn, secured his wrists. "Detective Aaron Pike, you are under arrest." Pike looked at Claire from the stone floor. "You think your father's men are different?" Claire looked toward Raymond. He stood in the center aisle with a gun in his hand and blood across his collar. "No," she said. "That is why I am watching them too." An agent pulled Pike away. Claire turned toward Ethan. A cut crossed his cheek. "Are you hurt?" "No." "That answer is becoming a problem." He almost smiled. A gunshot came from the altar. Victor had moved through the confusion. He stood behind Raymond with a weapon pressed beneath his jaw. 2 Sullivan men held positions near the front pews. Victor looked at Claire. "Enough." Raymond remained still. Victor took his gun and threw it across the floor. "Come here, Miss Bennett." Claire did not move. Victor tightened his grip around Raymond's throat. "Your father dies first." Raymond looked at her. "Do not." Victor smiled. Now he remembers how to be a father. Claire stepped into the aisle. Ethan moved beside her. Victor raised his weapon toward him. "Stay where you are." Ethan stopped. Claire continued walking. Her ivory dress dragged through water dust and blood. Victor watched her approach. Raymond's face remained controlled, but Claire saw fear behind his eyes. She had never imagined Raymond Vale afraid. Not of death, of failing her again. Claire stopped several feet away. "What do you want?" Victor laughed softly. "The same thing I wanted before everyone decided to become dramatic. The port routes, the routes, the union agreements, access to Vale shipping records. You threatened hospitals for paperwork. I threatened what mattered. Claire looked at Raymond. He began lowering one hand toward the inside of his jacket. Victor pressed the gun harder against his neck. Do not. Raymond stopped. Victor looked at Claire. Tell him to sign. There are no transfer documents here. Victor's smile remained. Your father carries authorization codes. Claire looked at Raymond. His silence confirmed it. Victor continued. He gives them to me, and you leave with Ethan. Raymond spoke. No. Victor's expression sharpened. Claire looked at her father. He met her eyes. For 21 years, Raymond had protected his empire by keeping her outside it. Now Victor held a gun beneath his jaw, and Raymond still refused to trade the city for his life. Claire understood. He was not refusing to save himself. He believed Victor would kill her once he had the roots. Raymond said quietly, You do not negotiate with men who need you dead. Victor smiled, spoken like a man who has buried many people. He shifted the weapon toward Claire. Raymond moved immediately. Wait. Victor looked at him. Raymond's voice became flat. I will give you the codes. Claire stared at him. Victor's smile widened. You see, Claire, blood makes honest men of us all. Raymond reached into his jacket. Claire saw the small authorization device in his hand. He was willing to surrender everything, not because she carried his name, because she was his daughter. The proof arrived too late to erase the years. It still mattered. Claire looked toward the altar. The small fire alarm switch rested beneath the ceremonial table. 3 steps away. Victor followed her gaze. What are you looking at? Nothing. He raised the gun toward her. Come closer. Claire took 1 step, then another. Ethan remained near the aisle, watching her face. She looked at him, not long enough to reveal the plan, long enough to remind him of the promise. Do not decide for me. Listen. Claire reached the altar. Victor extended his hand. The device. Raymond began to offer it. Claire struck the alarm switch beneath the table. A siren screamed through the cathedral. Emergency lights flashed. Sprinklers erupted from the ceiling. Water fell across the altar. Victor turned toward the sound. Ethan moved. He crossed the aisle and struck Victor's weapon aside. The gun fired. Ethan's body jerked. Blood appeared beneath his shoulder. Claire caught him before he reached the floor. Victor turned the gun back toward them. Raymond drove his shoulder into Victor's chest. They fell against the altar. The weapon slid across the stone. Raymond's men surrounded Victor, several guns aimed at his head. Victor looked up from the floor. Raymond retrieved his weapon. Claire pressed both hands against Ethan's wound. Raymond? He looked at her. Victor laughed. She does not have the stomach for it. Raymond raised the gun. Claire's voice cut through the siren. Alive. Raymond stared at Victor. Every year of hatred stood between them. Victor had attacked his daughter, threatened hospitals, corrupted police, put a gun beneath his jaw inside a cathedral. Raymond's finger rested on the trigger. Claire repeated the order. Alive. Raymond looked at her. Then he lowered the weapon. Federal agents rushed forward and secured Victor's hands. Agent Grant read the charges over the sound of the alarm. Victor looked at Claire as they lifted him. You think keeping me alive makes you different from him? Claire kept pressure on Ethan's wound. No. Victor waited. Claire looked toward the wounded Sullivan man near the choir stairs. I think my choice is due. Agents led Victor away. Claire turned all her attention to Ethan. The bullet had entered beneath his left shoulder. Blood soaked through his shirt. Stay with me. His eyes struggled to focus. You should have left. You do not get to give me instructions while bleeding. His mouth moved faintly. Can I ask a question? No. Can I sit with you when this is over? Claire pressed harder against the wound. You can ask again when you survive. Medical teams entered through the northern corridor. Claire gave them the injury details while keeping pressure in place. They lifted Ethan onto a stretcher. His hand reached toward hers. Claire caught it. The paramedic looked at her. "We need to move." Claire released Ethan's hand. The stretcher disappeared through the cathedral doors. The rain outside had begun to soften. Claire stood in the aisle while water continued falling from the sprinklers. Her dress was stained red at the front. Raymond approached. A bruise darkened his throat where Victor had held him. For several seconds, father and daughter faced each other without speaking. "You obeyed me," Claire said. Raymond looked toward the doors where Victor had been taken. "I did." "Was it difficult?" "Yes." Claire nodded. "I am going to the hospital. I will take you." "No." Pain crossed his face. Claire continued. "You can come. You are not taking me." Raymond understood the distinction. "All right." Ethan remained in surgery for 4 hours. Claire sat in a private waiting room at Harborview wearing hospital scrubs someone had found for her. Raymond sat across from her. Evelyn slept in a chair near the window. Grant appeared through a video call from Mercer Island and complained until a nurse ended the connection. No one spoke about the cathedral. Not yet. When the surgeon entered, Claire stood. The bullet passed beneath the shoulder joint and missed the major artery. There was muscle damage, but he will recover. Claire closed her eyes. The surgeon continued. "He is awake. Only one visitor." Raymond looked at her. Claire went alone. Ethan lay beneath white sheets with his injured arm secured. His face was pale. He opened his eyes when she entered. "You stayed. You were unconscious." "That did not answer me." Claire pulled a chair beside the bed. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan looked at the chair. "May I?" Claire almost smiled. "You are already sitting." That was not the question. She understood. Claire looked at him. "You may sit with me." His eyes closed briefly. "Not from medication. From relief." Claire leaned back. "This does not mean I trust you again. I know. It does not erase the library. I know. It does not erase the passport, the plan, or every time you decided for me. I know." Claire studied him. "You need a more complicated answer. I have used complicated answers to avoid the truth for most of my life." She looked down at her hands. "Then tell me the truth." Ethan breathed carefully. "I love you." The words entered the room without demand. He continued. "I do not expect you to answer. I do not expect it to repair anything. I needed you to hear it without another lie standing beside it." Claire felt the weight of the words. She did not give him what he wanted simply because he was injured. She did not walk away because fear told her staying was weakness. She reached for his uninjured hand. "I am still angry." "You should be. I still care about you." Ethan's fingers closed gently around hers. "I know how lucky that makes me." Claire stayed until he fell asleep. 2 days later, she met Raymond in a quiet hospital corridor. Morning light moved through the windows. He stood beside a vending machine as though he had never used one. Claire handed him a cup of coffee. He tasted it and looked offended. "It is terrible. It builds character." "I have enough." Claire leaned against the wall. Raymond waited. He had begun learning that silence did not always need to be filled by authority. "I am not becoming your successor," Claire said. His expression remained still. "Not now. Possibly not ever." Raymond nodded once. "I will finish nursing school. Yes. I will continue living in my apartment. It is not secure." Claire looked at him. He stopped. "Your apartment," he said. "I want Hannah protected until Sullivan's remaining crews are handled. Done. I want the legal shipping companies separated from weapons smuggling and political bribery." Raymond's face changed. "That is not simple. I did not say it was. Men depend on those businesses. Then give them work that does not require threatening nurses. He looked toward the window. You believe an organization like mine can become clean. No, Claire held his gaze. I believe parts of it can survive daylight. The rest should not survive. Raymond considered her words. And you intend to oversee this? Some of it. You said you were not becoming my successor. I am not. Then what are you becoming? Claire thought of Laura. Grant, the wounded man beneath the choir platform. Ethan, bleeding against the altar. Myself. Raymond looked at her. For once, he did not attempt to rename the answer. Claire continued. I want a trauma clinic funded in my mother's name. Done. Not a building used to improve your public image. His mouth tightened. A real clinic. Independent board. Transparent funding. Care for people who cannot pay. Raymond nodded. Done. And I want access to every record involving me and my mother. All of them. No conditions. No conditions. Claire looked at the bruise around his throat. Victor was right about one thing. Raymond waited. You would have surrendered the roots for me. Yes. Why? His expression softened. Because power can be rebuilt. And a daughter. Raymond looked at her. I already lost 21 years. Claire felt the answer inside her chest. She did not forgive him. Not then. But she allowed him to walk beside her toward Ethan's room. Over the following months, Victor Sullivan's organization collapsed under federal indictments, seized records and testimony from his own men. Detective Pike's security footage showed him disabling the cathedral checkpoint. The wounded gunman Claire saved identified the location of Sullivan weapons stores and confirmed Victor's order to attack the ceremony. Ethan provided records connecting Sullivan businesses to extortion and kidnapping. He also admitted his own crimes. Claire attended his first legal hearing. She sat in the second row beside Grant. Ethan looked toward her before answering the judge. He did not ask her to protect him from consequences. That mattered. Raymond's attorneys negotiated an agreement requiring cooperation, restitution, and several years of supervision. Ethan lost his legal cover, his access to Sullivan money, and every false identity he had used. He gained a small apartment with a door that locked from the inside. Claire visited only when invited. He visited her apartment only after calling. They rebuilt their relationship without gunfire forcing every decision. Some evenings they studied at her kitchen table. Claire prepared for nursing exams. Ethan completed court-required classes and helped Grant identify Sullivan Crew's still threatening witnesses. They argued about trust. They apologized without demanding immediate forgiveness. Ethan told her where he was going. Claire told him when she needed space. Neither mistook fear for devotion. Raymond began attending breakfast with Claire once a week. The first 3 meetings were uncomfortable. He asked questions like a man conducting an interview. Claire corrected him. He learned that she hated early mornings, loved cheap mystery novels, and still kept Laura's old flour container above the refrigerator. Claire learned that Raymond drank tea when anxious, and had kept every photograph Grant ever took of her. She found the collection disturbing. She also found the image of Raymond watching her kindergarten graduation from across the street difficult to forget. Love had existed. Poorly. At a distance. It would take time to become something she could trust. The Laura Bennett Trauma Initiative opened the following spring. It operated beside Harborview with an independent board and funding records available to the public. Claire refused to place the Vale name on the building. Raymond attended the opening and stood in the back row. He did not give a speech. That was her condition. Suzalo Library hosted the first Laura Bennett Nursing Scholarship ceremony several weeks later. Claire had refused Raymond's offer to purchase an entire wing. A scholarship, she told him, not a monument. He accepted. After the ceremony, rain covered the campus. Claire entered the reading room carrying the final notes from her nursing program. Students filled the long tables. Near the far window, Ethan sat with a book open in front of him. It was facing the correct direction. The chair across from him remained empty. Claire approached. Ethan looked up. She placed her books on the table. "Is anyone sitting here?" He looked at the chair. "It is not mine." Claire smiled. "That answer sounds familiar. It worked once." She sat. Ethan reached across the table. His hand stopped before touching hers. Claire closed the distance herself. Outside, Seattle disappeared behind the rain. Inside, Claire sat beside him, knowing his name, his past, and every truth he had once hidden. This time the seat was hers to choose.